Guys, I can't believe it. Scream, I guess we'll just call it Scream, is right around the corner. And in anticipation for that, we're going to do something I've never done. I'm going to rank all 7 killers from the main primary movies. So anyway, let's go. What's up, guys? First off, spoiler alert, if you've never seen any of the Scream movies, this should go without saying. Probably do not watch this video unless you just don't care about knowing who the killers are in these movies. So you have been warned. I shouldn't have to say that, but we live in this day and age, so here we go. The new Scream movie is coming out. I will be doing a non-spoiler review. New ranking for the entire franchise, probably a few more bells and whistles. I haven't figured it out yet, but yeah, got to capitalize on Scream. I do love this franchise. It's hard to put a ranking on where I would put the actual franchise. Maybe 4th down, something like that. But I still love it. I still have a good time. And I will say, as far as like packing a punch with your movies, and I know that Scream doesn't have that many movies out, I do enjoy all these movies. I think all these movies have some entertainment value heavily. You know, everybody loves a good whodunit. And one thing that Scream did, I don't know if it's the first, probably not the first, but introducing the notion of having 2 killers in a movie, because that really keeps you on your toes, because it's tough enough figuring out 1 killer. So 2 killers, and at this point you could probably guess, like Vegas money's probably that the new Scream movie is going to have 2 killers. I don't know, we'll see. One of these movies only had 1 killer, and yeah, and that is a great segue into the countdown. My number 7 is Roman from Scream 3. To me, Scream 3 is not only, I think it's the worst movie in the franchise, like as far as like writing and directing. Even though entertainment value, I might now prefer it over part 2. I go back and forth with it because there is some fun to be had, and there are some great sequences in this movie. Like the opening is awesome with Cotton and his girlfriend, but it goes into full-on soap opera territory with the unveiling of the killer and the killer's motivations, with Roman being the abandoned brother of Sydney because he was given up for adoption because his mother, Maureen Prescott, was raped. And so when he goes back to reignite his relationship with his mother, she discards him. And so he just goes apeshit. And he orchestrates the entire plan from the first Scream, you know, eventually leading to Billy Loomis. So as far as like your full-on psychotic killer, Roman might take the cake. And there are some psychotic killers in this list, but this just drove him completely insane, you know, not having a mother's love. And Sydney, on the other hand, you know, the cherished daughter, and he hated that. And so he wanted to go that far and orchestrate this entire freaking plan, and he could do it because he's the director. To me, again, this is just a little bit too far and too heavy-handed in terms of a soap opera story. This is where we are full on Scooby-Doo land. And in a way, Roman is kind of a caricature of a real character. He's just a little bit too out there, you know, a little bit too amplified. Number 6 is going to be Charlie from Scream 4. I love Charlie. I love the character. I'm going to go ahead and say I pretty much adore all these characters from here on out. I liked Charlie because he's kind of like us. He's a huge movie fan, and I like that Scream 4 in general really shined a light on like remakes, and Charlie is our guide. Charlie is the remake encyclopedia, and you know, I love that scene in the classroom with Sydney in there, and he's pretty much telling her the rules have changed. The game has changed, even in terms of movie making. Why do we see so many remakes now, whereas back in the 80s and 90s, we never saw remakes. Rarely did we ever see remakes, you know, but it seems like the industry depends on remakes now. Can you imagine not having remakes? It's almost unfathomable. And Charlie was completely smitten with Jill, you know, and going so far as to helping her kill people. Number 5 is Debbie Salt. And that's an alias. She's referred to as Mrs. Loomis. This is Billy Loomis's mother. You know, I got into a conversation with a friend of mine about her because she might be the most perplexing killer of the bunch. You know, on paper, it looks like a straight up revenge story, a mother wanting to get revenge for her son. But when you really, you know, pull back and take a look at her, what she really is narcissistic. She actually abandoned Billy Loomis after her husband cheated on her. And so it's not really fully spelled out what her ultimate motivation is for carrying out this plan. She enlisted the help of Mickey. She's very resourceful. She's smart, figuring this whole thing out. But her ultimate end goal, was it really revenge? Because she did, in fact, abandon her son. You know, so maybe she wants a little bit of fame. She loses weight, tries to make herself look more fit and presentable. I think you could really peel the layers back on Debbie Salt or Mrs. Loomis, and you could probably have a good character study there. And I often do love dissecting like female killers, especially if they are mothers. You know, going all the way back to the original Friday the 13th with Pamela Voorhees. There's something to be discussed about the psychology of these killers. And so I think for that reason, she makes for a great killer. Because you can have a good conversation about her, because one person might say, no, this is straight up revenge, this is a mother's love, and another person might say, she didn't give a shit about him. She wanted fame or notoriety. Who knows? And I'm sure she'll probably get the most comments down below, just because of the enigma that she is. Number 4 is Jill, played beautifully by Emma Roberts. Jill's last name is Roberts. But as far as performances go, like an actor's performance, I thought Emma Roberts freaking knocked it out of the park, because on paper, this is just a character that wants fame. You know, her cousin is Sidney Prescott, and Sidney gets all the attention. And, you know, Marsha. She's so upset that Sidney's getting all the attention, and she wants fame and notoriety, so she concocts this whole plan, uses Charlie, and she almost gets away with it. One thing I love about Scream 4 is they tack on that like additional ending after the main reveal in the hospital, which was really fun. We've never seen a Scream movie that has a sequence in the hospital, especially in like a final act. But you know, the whole sequence of her making it look like she was attacked, and it kind of reminded me of Jim Carrey in a couple of his movies. But you know, she falls on the table, she stabs herself. Just a great physical performance. And you know, I think another actress could have fallen on her face, you know, attempting that role, but I think Emma Roberts nailed it. Okay, top 3, here we go. Number 3 is Mickey. I can imagine the pressure of Scream 2 after the success of the first movie. You know, how beautifully that final act, that reveal was. To try to top that, they don't top it, but I think they do a good job with the characters. You know, at the end of the day, you just want to focus on good, strong characters. To me, that's what Mickey was. Mickey was this guy who was a film buff, and the focus of Scream 2 is on sequels, and so he was, again, kind of our guide, talking about how there's a lot of cases where part 2s are better than part 1s. You know, just really fun, punchy dialogue. You know, Timothy Olyphant is such a great, charismatic actor, and I thought he did a great job. I will say, my finger pointed right at him early on in the movie as being the killer, because he almost tries too hard to divert attention away from himself. But it's entertaining to watch, and he does do a good job of doing that. But I guess it's not the best job, because again, my finger was pointed right at him. And also when they pull away from the character for a good amount of time, which they kind of do in the middle of this movie, then again, your suspicions start raising quite a bit. But his reasoning was really interesting, because he wanted to blame it on the movies. And this is something that's very relatable, because we've seen case after case after case where music and movies were blamed on crimes. So this was an irresistible premise to go with in Scream 2. And he's the one killer that really wanted to be the killer. He wanted the world to see that Mickey is the killer. And he wanted to get off on like an insanity plea, and he wanted to blame it on the movies. You know, most of the other killers, they want to point the finger at somebody else. You know, they want to completely get away with it. But not Mickey. You know, Mickey fully wanted to be that killer, and I like that about him. Okay, number 2, no surprise here, is going to be Stu. And of course, number 1, going to be Billy. But Stu, I love how different Stu is from Billy, you know, because if you had 2 similar types, then it really wouldn't have worked, and they probably would have canceled each other out. But as far as like entertainment value goes, Matthew Lillard's performance as Stu, to me, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think he's a big part of why Scream was so big and why it works so well, because You had this great script, but you had this irresistible performance by him, this great comedy that he provides throughout the movie. There are some improv moments that he adds that just add that little bit extra to the movie. At the end of the day, he's funny as hell, you know, and that's a hard thing to do, to pull off on camera. And then turn around and be the killer at the end of the movie. And he's another character that you can theorize over, because some have even stated that there's a little bit of a love connection between Stu and Billy. Did Stu have the hots for Billy? Or is this just a case of a friendship that is stronger than ever? I think it might be the first. I don't know. I like that they never spelled that out. I don't even think that they gave hints to it. You know, you could compare this kind of to like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Looking at that movie now, it's glaringly obvious. But back in the 80s, a lot of people didn't pick up on it, which is crazy. But it's a yin and yang type thing. Matthew Lillard, Stu, is just as important as Skeet Ulrich's Billy. One without the other, I guess it does kind of cancel each other out. Can you imagine if only one of them was the killer in this movie? I don't think it would have been as impactful. So that leads me to number 1. And I did struggle with this, but I'm going to go with Billy. I almost put Matthew Lillard as number 1, because you could say that Stu is more entertaining than Billy, but I wanted a killer with a great emotional core that's so conflicted and hurt, and you can see that behind Skeet Ulrich's eyes in this movie. I thought his performance was very compelling. He is the obvious choice. You automatically put the finger on him pretty early on in this, because it almost seems too obvious. And I will admit, again, I thought Billy would be the killer from the beginning, even at the point where he makes it look like he's killed, which is genius, by the way, which is genius. But, you know, all bets are off in this type of movie. This is a movie where they celebrate other horror movies. So the thought of using fake blood to point away from yourself, to me, makes sense. But again, Billy, just so emotionally damaged by his mother cheating on his father. And he is the character that kind of rides the line of insanity throughout the movie. You know, you could see him spilling over into craziness at a few points. Even earlier on, he's probably the most unhinged killer on this list. Except for maybe Roman, I guess. I guess Roman's pretty damn unhinged too. So that's it, guys. My ranking of all 7 primary killers in the Scream franchise. I didn't add the TV show in here. I wanted to keep this strictly for the movies, but let me know your ranking down below. Are you excited for the new Scream? If you want to predict who you think the killer is going to be in the new Scream, go ahead and let me know. But this was a lot of fun, so maybe I'll do some other Scream rankings. If there's some other ones you'd like me to do, let me know down in the comments as well. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And do you like scary movies?